right, okay, let's get started. Good afternoon or good morning. Welcome to Offset. This is the third episode of this week. My name is Ryan Selvy. I'm your host for this week as I take over Adobe Live. Offset is the show that I get to do. I get to bring really cool people on, interview them about their process, their inspiration, their workflow, and answer any questions that you may have in the chat. Or if you're watching this replay, we'll still make it worth your time. We've got plenty of cool segments going on. Today, we're joined by Ravie, excited to have Austin or Noah, and they are two motion designers that have created their own company and have been doing great work all across the board. I'm excited to show you guys their reels, both actual motion reels and the reels that they have through social media. But a real quick hello to everyone in the chat, both in Behance and on YouTube. Thank you to Annika for being our moderator today. Hello to Oliver and Sean, Kendall, Steve. Good to have you guys here as always. And then if you guys are over on YouTube as well, good to see you. Trying to pull up the actual thing. Also to Nushin, Sabrina. Hey, Sabrina. Hi, how's it going? And Leo, thank you guys for being here. I'm excited to bring them in and show them off to you guys and have any questions that you guys may have while we're talking. If you're there and you have anything that pops up, please, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. So anything that you guys want to know and have pop up, please, by all means, throw it in. But that's enough of my introduction of them. Nothing is better than them actually being able to introduce themselves. So please give a very warm welcome to Austin and Noah.
Hello.
Thanks, Ryan.
Welcome.
Happening.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Now, Austin, it's a little bit earlier for you than Noah and I, right? Because you're on the West Coast.
Oh, dude, I wish.
No, you're not.
We're all East Coast folks. We're all hanging.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know why I assumed you were always West Coast. But...
He was West Coast last week, actually, for a little trip.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hang
That's
on,
when I was just like looking
West.
at your location. That's why I knew.
You know, it happens. I try to turn that thing off, but everybody just keeps watching it. It's weird.
North, yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to put yourself in the spotlight yet again. Do you guys want to start with just kind of quick introductions to yourselves and what you guys are all about?
Sure thing.
Yeah, Austin, take it away.
I am Austin, one of the two co-founders at Ravie.co, a small motion design studio with people all over the globe. We've got people in Morocco and Montenegro and the UK, but also Atlanta and Raleigh and New York. So we got some exciting and some, I'm just hanging here, having a good time.
Absolutely. And I am Noah Damon Wilde. I am the other co-founder of Ravie.co, a designer, a motion designer, an all-around person that lives in New York. So that's me. Great to be here.
All around
This is
someone
official
who lives in New York.
That's right. All around someone who lives in New York.
So cool. I guess we could start off probably by showing off your guys' work, and then we can kind of talk a little bit about how you started the company, why you started the company. So let's hop into our very first segment. Let's look at your work. Let's look at your work. Thank you.
I love
That made me giggle. That was really good.
It's good to see. Let's roll.
New work.
Let's start with the motion. So the motion reel you guys have. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll pull that and then we'll talk a little bit about it. But this is your most recent motion reel from 2023, and let's let it roll. Perfect sound design, by the way. I love the little whoosh at the end. And
Gotta
gotta
have
love a nice deep glow. I know, Austin, you did something yesterday with deep glow, and everyone that watches me knows that I use deep glow way too much because it's my absolute favorite.
Dude, me too. If I had a challenge where I wasn't allowed to use Echo, Deep Glow, or Overlord, it'd be over for me. I'd be
Oh yeah,
toast.
no, I get that. So Ravie, you said it's a French word, right?
That's
Mhm.
right.
And what does it mean?
It means delight.
To delight. Okay, and so you guys created it in what, September of 2020?
Yep, that's when we filed the actual paperwork, but we had been trying to figure out a name really for, I don't know, since May of 2020. It took a couple months, but we got there.
And had you guys
Were-
previously worked together, or was this kind of the first time you guys were coming together and working together on projects?
Well, let me tell you all about it. We originally met on a Discord server for incoming graphic design students for the class of 2023 at NC State University. And I was tippity typing in there. He was from down Houston, Texas, so he didn't know nobody in North Carolina. And so we were typing back and forth to each other. And he was a bit of a hot shot coming into the program because he was the one that knew motion design. No one else knew motion design. He had already been doing it for a while. I had personally already been doing just traditional graphic design and more branding focused stuff for a while. So I had a little bit of experience under my belt. But coming in, I was like, this guy knows some stuff, and I think other people could see it too. And I was like, this guy, I'd like to learn more about his stuff because he's coming in, he's got knowledge. So I was typing to him, and during orientation, we all met each other, and we went out for pizza. He embarrassingly spilled water all over the pizza.
Oh man!
But it was such a cool experience being able to like meet everyone right off the bat, and we got along. And we just kind of became friends. We started playing racquetball together in that first year of college. And eventually, when COVID happened, we weren't super happy with the college experience or the program. We didn't think it was providing enough value, and they didn't see us as working professionals, which we kind of sort of transitioned into. Austin came to me that summer of COVID and was like, hey, I'm doing some motion. Also, he had been teaching me a little bit of motion design because I was like, that stuff's cool. You're making graphic design move. How you do it? Like, let me see you down. We'd sit in his dorm room and he'd open his file and be like, this is what a pre-comp is. And I was like, ooh.
Now, does Austin have clean files?
I used way too many pre-comps at the time.
So many pre-comps.
Much better now, I think.
Much
Comps
better
and
now.
comps and comps.
Yeah. All the way through.
Now we like keep as few pre-comps as possible, and it slows our computers down a lot. But yeah, like he taught me a little bit. I did like a logo animation. He's like, this is what turbulent displays is. And I was like, this is revolutionary.
Turbulent displays.
Gotta hit him with the Turby Werby, man. You know how it is.
And then lockdown happened and we went online. And Austin and I were like playing some games together. Like we would play CSGO and Valorant a little bit together during lockdown. He was like, hey, I know this other motion designer. We're going to be doing some motion design together. We might as well like team up. Do you want in on that? I don't know why he asked me. I have no idea. I did not know motion design. I was just basically a designer. And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll give it a go. Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, the rest is history.
No, rest is history. 3 years later, and you guys have had some really big clients. You've had some really cool work that you've worked on. How has it been, working for yourselves and kind of having this immediate success with, not to say it's not warranted, but immediate success. I feel like you guys have accomplished so much in so little time. How's it been?
Man, I mean, I had lots of, like Noah was saying, we met in school. And at the same time that we were doing that, I was also interning at a marketing agency here in downtown near the college. And I was the only person doing any design there. So then I decided, of course, I should also start my own motion design studio instead. So I decided to do the, classic triple pronged approach of trying to spend 100% of my time on 3 different things. And, that works out super, super well. So what kind of ends up happening is I'm doing different work for class assignments or getting work on the job at this other company. And I didn't really have a lot of experience just working with a team at all up until that internship. And there was just all sorts of things I was able to learn about the broader industry of advertising and creative as a service, rather than just kind of like, hey, this guy DM'd me on Twitter and wants a video. And it's like, I don't really know what that means in the broader context. So being able to learn those sorts of things was super, super valuable to just getting started as quickly as possible. We already had some design skill set from the smaller jobs that we did during high school and during early college. And so the part that really was missing was just like, okay, how do we actually turn this into a viable business? And being able to, rather than waiting until the end of college to like get an internship and then start that whole process. And then by the time we're like 25, we've gotten to where we are now. We just decided why wait and started as early as possible at what we thought like the real deal was,
Right.
so to speak.
And then the rest is history.
Yep.
No, oh, that's fantastic. I know you guys have had a few clients like Adidas, Crunchyroll, Toshiba, National Hockey League. Are you guys actually hockey fans?
Funny enough, there's a pretty good hockey team here in Raleigh. The Carolina Hurricanes, I think, have been in contention for the playoffs a couple years in a row, but I've been to like 2 games, so I can't say I'm a real fan, but I try.
No, I'm not myself, but I just wasn't sure if it's kind of like something that you guys steer towards, or if it's kind of something that fell in your lap. By the way, also a big hello to a bunch of chatters over on YouTube. We have Sam and Grid, the Slasher, Luffy, Danny, and Barbara. I know that someone is saying something about the manifesto. You guys have a manifesto for Ravie?
Well, that's true. We do have a bit of a manifesto. I during winter break, I guess to call it that, was hanging out with family, and I love what we do at the company. Like, I mean, motion and design to me was the thing for a really long time, where I got to explore and try different things, and that sense evolved into, let me just see where I can push the business, and all sorts of things, just treating the business like a sandbox. And what that means is when I go on vacation, it's like part vacation. Like, I can embrace the relaxation a little bit, but the other part of me is like, okay, I want to get back to like playing with Ravie, like I'm ready to do this.
Right.
And what that evolved into was one night I was just like really thinking about like, okay, long term, what is the company going to be like? And so I just like was sitting there writing just nonstop for like, I don't know, 30 minutes or whatever. And I just sent it in our internal Discord to everybody. And I was like, boom, this is like my thoughts. Do we agree or disagree? And thankfully everybody felt pretty similarly. But the gist is that like motion design and graphic design has helped us get to a strong point creatively. But we see the longer term, and it's part of why we focus on social so much, being just becoming more of a general media company, able to help further on strategy and those sorts of things with clients, rather than just like, hey, we already have this idea for a video, please execute it. We'd rather be in as early as possible and be able to help people out as much as we can.
Yeah, that's actually a really great transition into the idea of how I initially found you guys. Was actually, I think, through either Instagram Reels or Shorts, maybe, but I think it was Instagram Reels, and it was you guys reacting to the new scroll down function of the properties panel in After Effects. I want to talk a little bit about your focus on social and how it's kind of changed your business and what you guys have come across. How has that been?
I mean, it's a night and day. Ravie before social and Ravie after, spending lots of time on social. That was all of 2022. Basically every project we got was through Instagram or other inbound from social. Prior to that, there's like issues with client work when we're sitting there thinking our best opportunity to get more work is like, every project we get has to be the best looking project we've ever made. And like, we're sitting there kind of like fighting with a client every once in a while about like, no, but we need it to look like this, so our portfolio, like, we can put it up there and whatever, and then be able to post that. So one day I just got tired of kind of doing the same corporate stuff over and over again. We had a slew of projects in a row where, it's like one for the real, one for the meal sort of thing. And there were a lot more meals being eaten than reels being made. So I just got tired of it. I was like, I just got to make something fast and cool and punchy and just what would be fun for me. And so I just set aside like 6 hours and I was like, boom, go and make something. I just posted it. Wasn't expecting a response, much of anything. I might have had like 700 followers on Instagram at the time. And then very, very quickly, they just started blowing up. Instagram shone its light on us algorithmically, and I spent the majority of last year making a short every single week, purely just out of what seemed fun for me to make at the time. And turns out when a lot of what you're posting is just what you really like to make, then clients start coming to us just being like, hey, do your thing. And that's the absolute like magic words to my ears. You know, it doesn't really get any better than that. And so ever since, we've now expanded that out to where it's not just me posting on social. Pretty much everybody on the team has a pretty big focus on it. And we make sure to be open and transparent about what we're doing as much as possible, whether that's through entertainment reels or otherwise. So social is 100% the most vital thing to our business right now.
Now, with that in mind, are you mostly creating these like in Premiere and After Effects, or are you doing this mostly on your phone?
So we've got 2 video editors on the team now, and we've essentially got 2 content buckets. There's just animation bucket where we're just making stuff that we hope a client could see themselves in and want to work with us on that front. But the other side, especially with what Noah's doing, so I'll let him speak to this especially, is lots of just talking to the motion community. That's been a huge thing for us as well. I want to get Noah's take on that.
I mean, we want to do a lot of exciting creative things. And in order to do that, one of the biggest assets that we can possibly build is a good audience that cares about what we're doing. We care about what we're doing, so we try and share it. And there's so many different ways of doing that. One of the ways that I found success is by, like, I really like Illustrator. I work in Illustrator all the time, and there are certain things in Illustrator that I was like, dang, I wish I knew this when I first started with Illustrator. And so I just made some like silly little Illustrator tips. And I'm like, hey, Danny, our wonderful editor, one of our wonderful editors, will you edit like a YouTube short or an Instagram reel for me about this Illustrator tip? And they've really popped off. People really enjoy them, and I enjoy making them. And then, you know, it's just kind of expanding the audience in our own unique ways, because everyone on the team has their specific interests. It's not necessarily just about the motion design community, but like Austin, for example, is like a faster and I would say better animator than I. And
you
so
lie.
he's perfect for making more After Effects and more like motion design centric content, while I have much more patience for typography and layout than he does. And so that's the kind of areas that my content might be focused around, that and design and all the things that I really love. And so, I mean, if we all go in on our creative passions and make that into an activatable audience and engage people, then I mean, the world's our oyster at that point.
Well, I mean, that's all part of it. Is definitely in like any form of partnership or like a company, it's like it's good being able to know everybody's strengths and weaknesses, or not even weaknesses, but just ways that they're less strong, and more so like being able to pass the baton back and forth, I feel like is a great success. I see that Sabrina is saying Noah's After Effects and Illustrator quick tip videos have blown my mind more than once, which is definitely something you were speaking to, which would be a great transition into our next scene. I didn't know that was there.
What? I didn't know that was there.
So, Noah, I know you have. It's just I have a low bar for self-confidence, so it's just I throw it all out the wall.
Dude, I just need a compilation of all of these.
I want them back to back to back.
No.
Super fast.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. But no, I know that you have a handful of little tricks that you've kind of put out onto your own reels and your shorts. If you don't mind, I was going to share your screen and we could maybe look at one or two of the ones that you kind of have up your sleeve.
Yeah, sure. Oh, there's so many. I'm going to give you guys a sneak preview
All right.
into one of my favorite little tools that I've been messing around with recently, which is, if you didn't know, the touch type tool. You can select some text, and instead of having to expand out the text and like go into outline mode, and then you can't change the font of any of them, you can just grab the text and like move it around if you want, and size it, and rotate it.
Now, this is something that I learned live on stream because I was doing something, and another viewer kind of hopped in and was like, you don't have to outline everything and separate it as different shapes. And that only happened, honestly, maybe like a month or two ago, which is incredibly late in the game because I feel like it's been a thing for a little bit.
Like it's so much easier to just do that.
Yeah,
I have so much fun with that.
But when you take that and you transition it over to After Effects, though, you would have to outline it before bringing it over to After Effects, right?
That's a good question. I honestly haven't messed with that.
Yeah, I don't think it has support yet in order to take that into account. And also, if you're doing like individual whatever. Luffy's in the chat asking, this is a great question. Do I need to learn graphic design before starting motion design?
You don't need to, but I'd say it's one of the most helpful things. Austin and I both have a traditional graphic design background, and it has been incredibly invaluable to both of us. It's been so valuable to just be able to design scenes and be able to like understand the composition a little better and know how things should like fit together compositionally, and just using color, and just there's so much there that is just going to help you so very much. But ultimately, if you just have a passion for motion design, you don't have as much of a passion, or like very little passion for design, then don't bother, because if it's not going to be passion driven, then you're not going to stick with it. So
yeah, I would say that there's always room for production designers, like there's, especially in a pinch. I think that even if you don't want to fully explore the idea of graphic design, just getting to know the basics, so you know the terminology, I think is going to make you a stronger production designer in the long run. But I don't think you have to like go to graphic design school for forever in order just to be a motion designer. It's just kind of what you want to focus on.
Yeah. I also have one more Illustrator tip if you're interested.
Would love it, yeah.
All right, so this one, let's say we have a bunch of lines here, and we want to extend these lines in the same angle. The smart guides only let you do that with one. You see like a line extension up here, and you can move it back and forth. But if you grab a lot of the anchor points, it doesn't have that, and so you can't hit the same angle. But like so many things in Illustrator, it all is modular and works together. So you can just Command D on all these guys instead, and it works.
Did you say Command D?
You can Command D, which repeats the last transformation. But the cool thing is that you can do all kinds of stuff with anchor points specifically. Like you can also use the Align panel on them and push them all to one corner and do that kind of stuff. Whereas usually, like before, I was like, oh, you can do that with like shapes, and you can like copy over like a whole entire shape like this and then Command D it. But you can do that also with the anchor points themselves. And I think that's something that just didn't make sense to me right away. And now that I know it, it makes messing with anchor points and actually changing paths so much easier.
No, so I think that a lot of things that you kind of think are mechanical and have to have like human intervention is becoming more and more recognized that the system actually knows what you're doing, and you get just a simple keystroke can completely automate so much of the things that I used to, painstakingly do.
I know.
Which I'm here for. I mean, especially even with like rotations, I know that if you do the Control D when you're doing the rotations, it'll like continue. And you can like make like a clock or whatever. But the Ren is in Behance saying, I want to get into motion graphics. There are a lot of titles that you guys are spitting out. What's the difference between a motion designer, director, editor, etc.? I guess you guys could actually talk to roles about how you guys structure at Ravie. What does that kind of look like? How does your workflow look?
Sure. The funny thing is, we both we never worked in really corporate environments, so we weren't exposed to a lot of the structures of a lot of the studios out there. And what that means is instead of having like somebody who's just a producer for us or just a director or any of those things, we actually have everybody essentially blossoming into a creative director if they're not already. We believe in the Swiss Army knife approach, where everybody on the team being able to pretty much do any part of the process at any time. More so, not from a like wanting to keep the team super small perspective, even though that is part of it. But mostly because if I've got an idea, I want to be able to take that as far as I possibly can. Like I don't want to have to always go through the potential miscommunications that happen when passing an idea off from person to person. And so that means for us, what another studio might consider a director being a person who's not necessarily in production and is more so the person to give feedback on work that is being done by the production team or giving the initial instruction and set of ideas. Noah and I primarily have that role for a lot of our larger projects, but we will always be in with our team actually producing those as well alongside them. And it's very free flowing. Like Ravie is very much a democracy in the sense that like every decision that's being made has everybody's voice in it. Noah and I are kind of just there to facilitate sometimes, but it's really just up to everybody.
Yeah, and to that point, you guys really created an ecosystem for your business during lockdown, and you continued to scale with people all over the world. I know you were mentioning all the different locations people are. Mm-hmm. How is it running a business when you're not in a physical location with everyone?
That was one of my like dream things for the future. Like I was thinking, oh, when I am really running a studio with other people, I can't wait to actually have that space and we all get to like go into the like lounge area and talk about this project or something. But COVID just kind of threw a wrench in that whole plan, and we've been remote the entire time. And while it was scary at sometimes, I guess the idea of trying to manage people remotely, we just have our virtual office at this point. Yeah. We have our own internal Discord server, and everybody's just sitting in the voice chat, either muted or with their camera on or off or whatever, pretty much the entire day, so that we're not really missing out on any of those moments of like tapping somebody on the shoulder and being like, hey, I made this thing, can you give me feedback on it? Or like, hey, look at this and whatever. Like everybody is still very much present and online the entire time. And I think a lot of that is because our team pretty much only freelanced before working together, all of us. And so this is the only way that we know to work right now. And as much as it is really fun when we actually all get to work together, we still make it work very well when we're all remote.
And so you guys have met up in person too?
We had our first team retreat, which is where we actually met most of the team in person for the first time. Otherwise, it was just me and Noah who'd met each other back in February, early March. We had our first retreat. And then we've got a couple people coming into town next week for a conference here in Raleigh. So it's exciting. It's like a couple times a year we get to see each other in person because it's just so hard to pull everybody in from all different parts of the world. But when it does happen, we get some really good ideas going, and it is really fun. I am envious of studios that do have in person, but I'm glad we're able to make it work.
All right, no, I'm gonna throw your screen up on the screen just because it looks like you're working on something cool, but keep the conversation going. I am interested to hear how you curated and found other people to work with, because obviously that's a lot of people to kind of sift through when it's a location is not a factor. You can just do wherever. I know you guys also have done some live streams in the past where you do live feedback. Mm-hmm. How do you guys navigate finding new talent?
We've actually got a couple different, just like everything else with content, we've kind of stuck our tendrils as far as they can go in a bunch of different directions. And some of the things that we just did for fun ended up being perfect recruitment tools. So we also have this Discord community that we run that's got like 3,000 people in it now, motion designers, sound designers, all sorts of different folks. And we've run a couple challenges in there where we come up with a prompt and either people are working in teams or on their own. and they've got X amount of time to submit an animation to certain specs and whatever. And then they submit it. We'll do a live stream reviewing everybody's work and crowning the eventual winner or top 3 or those sorts of things, and giving them like a prize or some merch or those sorts of things. And what that ended up doing is when we really got in a bind on a couple projects, Noah and I were very intent on keeping it just us two for a very long time. We didn't want to scale too fast, but we just really started to pick up speed on some projects, and we were like, we're going to need people. So we were like, last minute, we need freelancers to work with. And we were like, wait, who better than the people who just won that last challenge? Like, they already know Ravie, they already know us, they know generally what we're up to, and it worked out great. That's how we brought on our first 2 motion designers onto the team, and they're still here and loving it. So I don't think it was that bad of a call to do that, but
no, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, how has it been being a organic kind of thought leader in the space and having to juggle that on top of actual client work? Do you feel like they are in conflict with one another? Like, do you feel like one takes more time from the other?
I mean, it's constant push and pull, but
Right.
to me, the things that have helped us just juggle so many different initiatives all the time is if we can stick it into a routine, then it is that much easier. So with the live show that we did for a while, we just set aside an hour that was blocked out on the calendar every day. We knew we had that standing, and we just worked other things around that. Or if I need to make my post for social for the week or something, then I just make sure that I block out like 4 hours throughout the week or something to make sure I get it done. But we really never do things for social that will take longer than like a day at most. So.
Just so that it can stay streamlined and it doesn't take away from kind of taking over too much.
Right. Because at the end of the day, the client stuff, I mean, what's making us money, and that's the lifeblood of the business. We're going to have to prioritize that, of course.
No, I get that. In the chat, Luffy's asking, what advice would you guys give to your younger selves who just started motion design?
Dude. Oh my God.
Jeez, so many things.
so many things. Oh my gosh. Where do you even start with that? One of the biggest pieces of advice I would give to that little young Noah, and probably myself right now, would be like, it's totally chill to fuck up and fail. Sorry, mess up and fail. And just like absolutely screw the pooch on it. As long as you are able to take that with grace and learn from it and be consistent in how you talk to people.
I feel like that's great. I feel like, I mean, it's kind of cringy at the point, but the move fast, break things that people always say, I think actually does speak a lot to just going in and working on it, because otherwise you're just never going to learn, because you're going to be too scared all the time to kind of navigate that.
Imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah,
one of the biggest things, man.
I think it's most people's biggest nightmare, and I guess I would just say, just be willing to fail. You know, I think there's a lot of people that feel like they have to get to a certain level of knowledge before they just start doing something. You know, and it has never, any time where I have been in that mindset, it has not worked out nearly as well as me just going and doing the thing I set out to do, no matter how terrible it might have looked on a first try or whatever.
Right.
Like, it doesn't really matter, because learning on the fly, especially in this industry where things change so often, I think is a pretty great way to do it.
Oh. Well, I think this is also a natural progression for us to hop into our next segment, which is From This to That.
From this to that.
All right, and we have the first one up, which is this NBC demo from Austin.
Oh. So
Still his best piece.
it's still one of my, I do have a soft spot for that. It looks a lot better every time I go back and watch it than I thought it was at the time.
Okay.
I was terrified to use After Effects originally. Okay. I was sitting in Photoshop and just moving things over however much I wanted. And then I'd export that frame. And then I'd do the same thing. I export it and export it and export it frame by frame and sequence all of it in Windows Movie Maker because I didn't know how to use Premiere either.
Windows Movie Maker.
Yep. A throwback. A real throwback. Windows 7, Windows Movie Maker. And now anything that I animate, I really like tying it to music. It's a little bit more difficult on client stuff because, you know, custom sound design, whatever. But if I'm just making something for myself for fun, I will usually pick out a song first and use that to help guide the animation. But on that one in particular, I was just like, well, I don't know how to animate a whole lot of things. I'm just sitting in my high school class. I'm pretty bored. Let me make one of those like this next up type things on TV. And so I just made that little like button shape, like a paint smear looking thing in Photoshop. I was like, sure, I can use that throughout the entire thing. That's fine. No storyboarding, no anything. I'm just sitting there just like moving things around in Photoshop. And I sequenced it all together. I had the whole thing animated, no sound or anything. And then I went and found this one NBC jingle on YouTube and it just worked perfectly. I didn't have to move anything around and it just, so, you know, it worked out.
Mike is saying that he's down with the swirl, which I think it's nice. Let's watch it one more time since we just talked about it. Yeah, because it's only 7 seconds, so I'll cue it up again.
It matches up so well.
Everything down to the like
so incredible. Ding, ding, ding. Like perfect timing just happened to be that way. And that happens more than you would think.
Yeah, more than you would think. And
like
frustratingly so, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
So much so when sometimes I just throw it like a audio file in to just be a placeholder, and then I'm like, well, now I'm married to it. Like it worked.
We actually did
saying she also had Windows Movie Maker as her gateway software, but she was making anime music videos and claymation, which I love to hear.
I mean, hey, there was a really old web software a long time ago. It was called Animoto or something. And I was the kid in my classes in elementary school that would be making the like firework gifs and stuff all over our like slideshows about tigers and volcanoes and whatever. So,
but it got you here. So that's all that matters, you know?
That's right.
All right. So we looked at Austin's old work. I know, Noah, you also sent me over an old portfolio site.
Oh yes, we should look at some of the first pieces of motion that I did.
Pull it up and we'll go from there. Give me a sec.
It was rough.
Yeah. All right. So wait, have you not updated this site in a while? Is that why you sent this over?
Nah, this is from
this one's been abandoned.
College. This one has been very abandoned.
So I used to motion design.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Do the hover over thing. That's probably my best thing I've ever done.
Oh
yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's a little speedy boy.
I know, right? If you look closely, you'll notice that the
just motion. Oh, it's also
Logofolio also has something. See that turbulence place? Come on now.
Yeah, I said that was the golden. If you look
closely on the motion design one, the text color and the color of the actual zoomy guys are different. So
so this
it annoys me to this day. It makes me so mad.
Anyway, it's some division to it, I suppose. I'd say it's a feature, not a bug.
I'll take it.
But let's hop into it real quick. It says, captivate your audience with motion. So I hope everyone's ready to be captivated.
This is a cute project.
I still love this thing.
This thing's pretty
very cute.
Has some lo-fi on it. Just imagine.
All right, I don't have the audio coming through, but it's got good lo-fi vibes for everybody.
That one was mostly an Illustrator project. That was mostly illustration right there. But oh yeah, play that one. The music on this one is the most annoying thing. Just imagine the worst music.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone else can hear it, but I can, and it's
oh my god.
Vibe.
Yeah, I don't remember how many times you had me watch that thing.
Austin hates this so much.
It's not as bad as Boom Bang.
Oh, okay. So Boom Bang. Let me tell you about Boom Bang. You're gonna probably see it come up next. All right. Before you play this one, that is actually one of the first thing I animated.
Yeah.
Austin helped me. We used turbulent displays and too much texture to animate a logo I made. All right. So this one, a little bit of context here. I worked for a literary and arts magazine at NC State for a while as their promotions designer, and I made this little motion piece in like I think I just put it off too long, but that's not why it's bad. I just did that as well. It is so funny, and the way that the end of it is the least like build up. It's just like the worst release of energy ever. So
Yeah.
just go ahead and give us
it
the
up.
treat of
Yeah.
watching
All right,
it.
Give
check
it a
it out.
cue.
Oh no.
Gotta love the old Apple type vibe.
Mhm.
Oh, yep, there we go. Yep.
Boom.
Bang.
Bang.
Like never has boom and bang
Ah.
felt less boom and bang.
I know.
It's just
Okay, so what would you say is your biggest takeaway from looking at an old piece like that, and how you would maybe approach it today?
I would say probably that I'm perfect and I should never change.
Back then to now, or now
Right.
you're perfect and back then?
Back then I was probably more perfect.
Yeah,
I
he's
need to,
lost his
I need to
touch,
refine
honestly.
that,
Nice.
honestly. Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, there's just when you look at old work, there's just a million things that you would change that are like so blindingly apparent.
Yeah.
And I mean, that can even happen from month to month. I saw this like a month later and I was like, this is not the best thing I've ever done. I should really try harder. But I mean, at the time, it's like, you know, you work on something a while, you gotta be a little gentle with yourself. because
Absolutely. I mean,
at the
especially if
time,
you're
I
learning
was like,
something
this
as you
is
go.
cool.
Yeah.
Like it's all part of the process. You are where you are because of where you were in the past. Like
Yeah.
everything's moving forward. I mean, I feel like you're probably harder on yourself about this than you should be. There definitely
Honestly, I disagree. I really don't. I don't take any like. I'm not caught up in it. Like I'm proud that this is where I
Yeah,
was and I
it's-
got here. I'm not at all like. This doesn't bother me one bit. I think that it is one of the funniest things ever, and to be able to laugh at yourself, I think is you know, a salt of the earth skill. I think it's one of the best things you could possibly do, especially with old work. And the ability for Austin and I to just crack up at our old work is one of our favorite things to do. It's so much
It's
fun.
part of the fun for me is like the being willing to fail is actually just giving myself good things to look
Mhm.
forward to in the future. Like I go back and look at a lot of that work very fondly because I remember like the headspace I was in, or like what the projects meant to me at the time. But then it's equally funny to be able to just be there and be like, I don't know why I made that thing that way, and it just makes me feel better about the work I do now. You know, it's always a
Really-
good measuring post.
Yeah, brings me so much joy to look back at old work and be like, that was some garbage. I'm not gonna lie. It's
Well,
just so much fun.
And it's
also
contextual, you know, like
It really
of course it's like what Noah made there is not garbage, you know, like obviously, but it's just fun to play those mind games with ourselves, I guess.
is. Right.
I get that. With that in mind, I feel like some of the biggest inspiration you can have, rather than like just looking at yourself, is also kind of looking at other artists in the space and seeing
New
how they
segment.
kind of contribute to your work. Which brings us to our next segment, Art Talk. Now, I know you guys.
Terrifying.
I
love it.
I know you guys kind of fell into motion design kind of as a natural progression into it. Was there anyone in particular that really inspired you to kind of find motion through graphic design, or was it more, I don't know, kind of like you can't really point to one person in particular?
As far as inspiration to get into it goes, I'll be a little sappy and say, like, quite frankly, as you heard before, it was Austin. It was the person the person I got to work with and who taught me After Effects in the first place, and being able to like see his work be like up here, and I was like, this is just like this motion design thing I have never really seen before. It's just like, it's very inspiring to just, and then actually be able to talk to him. I'm like, this is so swell. I really enjoyed it. So I mean, right off the bat, to get into it, it was absolutely Austin.
Well, shucks, dude. Sure worked out for me. Thanks.
You're very welcome.
And for me, I don't really think there's any person in particular. It was more so I just had that eureka moment of seeing an ad that somebody had made or something and realizing like, oh, that's literally what I do, but it moves. And then figuring out how to do that from like a utility perspective of just like, I could probably figure out how to do this. But I have plenty of inspiration now of people that I am very envious of and also just wowed by.
Yeah, I would love to highlight some people. Austin, would you like to go first? Yeah.
Sure. I sent a link.
Yeah, so you have pulled up Juan LCO, and they're very vector-based motion graphics. Why did you pick out this person in particular?
So he actually came into our Discord first and was enjoying the work Noah and I were making, which is just baffling to me because his skills in faux 3D and texturing and just the overall complexity of the work
Design.
is just so immense for the amount of time it takes him to do these things and how frequently and consistently he's able to just create amazing feeling work. Not to mention, as a fellow young person that also started very early on in this sort of space, the fact that up until a couple months ago, I think he was 17, is just baffling to me. You know, like I have a little bit of like, yes, pride, my young people, let's go. You know,
Wow.
Yeah, truly, he's
he's
going to take over the industry.
absolutely
This man is
wonderful.
crazy.
Yeah.
And so when you see a piece like this, what is something that you want to take from this that you want to implement into your own work?
He manages to take the work that I see from some of my favorite studios that I know took dozens of people to create and months to make, and he does it by himself in a very short amount of time. It's the level of just how finished the work feels. It doesn't feel like he only had a certain amount of time to do something. It's not really something I can really pinpoint in terms of a technique or anything necessarily. It just has that feeling to it.
No, it's beautiful. It's very polished. It's very if it does not feel like one person, let alone a person.
And
That one specifically was a couple of people, but like all his stuff really doesn't feel like one person. That's crazy.
No, and not only that, like he's just amazing on his own, but he has started a little collective of like 7 other people that are exactly like him. So that's a little terrifying to me, but also exciting. So, you know,
I mean, you can see Ben Marriott is in the chat right here. Not the chat, the comments, just saying like fantastic work. And it's like, oh, Ben.
no. And it's, I just feel like he's like 7 is criminally underrated.
Absolutely.
I don't understand how his posts don't get more traction, but he is easily like a top 3 motion designers for me right now.
Calling it now. Next Jorge right here.
Oh yeah, 100%.
This man is probably one of the best motion designers I have ever seen.
Yep. He just understands
he gets it.
He gets it. He has the like inherent understanding of the easing, you know,
The way of the keyframe.
he just knows. He speaks the language.
All right, and then so up next, Noah, you mentioned Johan.
Johan?
Oh
Yeah. Johan Petit.
yes.
This man goes crazy. Not only is he a fantastic musician, but his designs and his ability to just like out of nowhere create some of the most unique, beautiful, and fantastic pieces of work I've ever seen is just is nuts. And oh my gosh, he's just so talented. I don't know what it is with France, but y'all got some really talented motion designers.
Is that why you said your Ravie is
that just happens to be coincidence.
We're just trying to get a sparkle of the magic. Like we're trying to take
appropriating because you're like everybody else is
all the other cool kids.
like maybe it'll rub
French.
off. I don't know.
By the way, I missed it, but Antonio said for the last guy, he said I'd say is more of a 10 than a 7. Dumb.
I think you're right.
I think you're right. This man. I mean, if we could watch or like just skip through the video of Annihilation, he's got.
I think it's the first
and also,
one.
I love
the first one he has.
this.
This guy.
Yeah, this guy. It's crazy. He did this with his friend who does like some more 3D stuff in like one night. And I wish you guys could
And
hear.
they made the audio for it.
Yeah, they both did the audio for it. I think it might have been just him. Yeah.
It's remarkable.
And
It's
editing.
also you just working with red is so difficult because it can very easily just completely overpower everything else and
I know.
not be controlled. And I'm always very envious when I see
Mhm.
someone use a red background or
I
something.
know.
Highly recommend going and watching the full video of this with
Yeah.
sound and following both of these people because they're some seriously fantastic people.
Now, are
Johan.
these guys in the Discord that you guys manage?
They are actually.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yes.
And how has it been? Teach me, Poppy.
I was excited for that
obviously.
one. I love those like shiny things. I'm such a fan of shiny stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like
Is
a
that
little
something
crow
you'd
over
like to
here.
reflect in your own work?
Exactly. I sure do. And
Yeah.
I mean, on top of being a great designer and a fantastic motion designer and a wonderful artist, Johan is also a really lovely person. I know him personally, and so I'm honored to know this man as well. I just like to brag a little bit about that.
No, it seems like a really supportive environment, and it's cool to be able to tap people on the shoulder, I guess, if you need to kind of figure out how they manifested the work that they manifest. Because I mean, so much I feel of motion design can be the idea of like magician's tricks. Like you don't necessarily want to reveal everything, but I also have been really surprised at the openness of a lot of motion designers in the last few years to just be like, yeah, I'll show you exactly how I did this.
Yeah.
Which is always really cool to see.
I love that. I love that part of the community. I say if you're not willing to share how you're doing stuff, then
That
then
is
stop
silly.
it, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what are you really hiding? That's just a little bit of insecurity there.
Right. By the way, I pulled up the full video you sent on over of Annihilation. This is still Johan.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see it in its full glory. See, like
It
that
is
that
beautiful.
explosion of red on red. I'm gonna rewind it real quick. Like this with just the subtle black is
It's so much,
blows my mind.
yeah. And the like little bit of rings, the ring texture it's got, and just the pacing of this video. That's
Yeah.
like one of my favorite shots right there.
Yeah.
And you guys should really watch it with sound. It improves
just
it like
hits
100
so
times.
hard.
Oh,
I like
it's so crazy.
it's great. We
Too
love
good.
Johan.
It's wild. Annihilation. See, this is also like an aesthetic. I recently found a website. I'll have to send it to you guys too. But it goes through all the different designs, like movements, even like up to this year, and it is
cool.
able to break it down. And this actually has a specific style, and it's kind of spearheaded by Nike. And I have to figure out what that
can see
website's
that.
called. But it's really cool to see. And it's also just interesting to see it in other, and then also see how motion design in itself has its own trends that you can kind of point to and be like, oh, that looks like that was animated in 2017,
Right.
Whereas like, well, now I feel like higher frame rates are kind of out of style again because now everyone wants to animate with every 14 frames or something.
I know, really
People
cringy.
love lower frame rates.
Do you guys, when you're working together with a team and you're passing projects around, do you guys have a standard that you have everyone start with, or from project to project, do you kind of sit down and see how it's going to be best represented for like the client, like how like frame rate or composition?
Some clients will want certain things depending on. I mean, like some of them will be doing actual shows, and so their screens play at like the 29.97 or whatever. But generally we think motion looks the tastiest when it's at 24 frames per second.
Yeah,
that's our favorite.
Tastiest crunch. Sabrina, by the way, is in the chat. Yes, sports brut is the idea of the style that I was trying to articulate.
Yeah, it's like,
but yeah. Antonio wants to know, speaking of insecurity, any thoughts on the imposter syndrome in the field?
Man, no. Do you remember like we went through like a show where we acted as if there were like 5 monsters of motion design, and
yeah,
I don't remember how we slayed the beast, but I don't know. For me, I don't necessarily subscribe to the Enneagram test very literally, but I do like how it describes some things. Noah introduced me to it, and essentially it gives like a different number for different personality types. And one of the things that I feel like I do very, very well is just like, bad feelings about something I'm doing. Okay, let me push that off so I can get the thing done. That's great. And you just kind of have to build up that tolerance. For me, it really helped whenever I was creating a loop every single week last year. Because having some sort of consistent schedule where I'm going to be posting something meant that I was able to put something out, even if I didn't feel fantastic about it, and be like, doesn't matter. I get another shot at it next week. You know, like nothing feels super finite. I try never to spend months and months working on a project for a variety of reasons, but more often than not, just because it's like, it's that 80-20 rule. I can get something really, really great in a pretty short amount of time. And I don't want to just sit there and pester myself over like, is this the best thing I've ever made? Truly, because it's so subjective, which is part of the reason I love social media, because you can get actual validation of like, hey, those thoughts that are in your head might seem silly to other people who just admire what you're doing, you know? That has been like a super huge benefit from social, is helping defeat that for us, I think.
And I also like that you brought up your exercise with doing kind of loops on a week. What was that process like for you? Obviously, you speak positively of it because it had, gave you just the feedback that you got. But how was it kind of limiting yourself to those restraints? Did you feel like it was too stressful, or would you do it again?
So I would do it again if I felt verifiably that it was coming from a place of passion for me. When it started to do really, really well for us, there was like a peak where it was like the best viewership we had gotten on it. And we were like riding that high and it felt awesome. But then it was starting to chase that bar rather than just making something that I wanted to make. And it didn't help that it did for the business, but for mentally, it didn't help that like the pressure was on for me to make one of these every single week, because that was the best thing we had for hitting a giant red sales button every time, like we would get a bunch of inquiries off of these. But it started just as an outlet. Like I was saying earlier, just like, hey, I was kind of tired of doing projects like this. Like I'd rather just make like boom, bang, pow. Look, it's like punching you in the eyeballs a little bit type stuff.
Boom, bang, pow.
That's right.
It constantly comes back.
I just love me some boom, bang, pow motion. It's just so satisfying to me. And so what I have been doing is kind of I'm keeping a weekly schedule, but it's not always super public facing stuff. But I always just give myself that like 4 or 5 hours of just like, I need to make something in this amount of time. And if I don't really like it, that's okay. I'll post something else. It's no big deal. So yes, I would do it again, just like under the right circumstances in terms of, do I actually feel like I want to be doing it for me, or versus just like, we have to get this number of views and whatever. And that sort of playing that sort of game's tough.
I agree. Yeah. I also think that's some of the best advice I could give, is to just really find ways to get yourself some perspective, and through that, take the pressure off, whether that can be through talking to other designers and other people and realizing you're not the only person in the entire world, or to just give yourself, 20 minutes to make something like purposefully bad. Mm-hmm. Like, try that. It's not going to be good at first. Just accept that.
Right.
And like the thing I'm working on right now started with like the most messed up weird little, but now I like it. Now I'm happy.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point to also talk about like mental health and kind of your relationship with your work. Let's talk real quick about some burnout. So obviously, it's something that everyone has to deal with. We have, deadlines that you have to meet, but sometimes you can kind of just like hit a wall. What do you guys do when you're feeling really burnt out and you need to kind of get back into the headspace?
This is actually very topical for me because I was feeling some burnout last week.
Sorry for going on this week, dude. Sorry.
Dude, totally fine. You deserve it. So there's a couple. Maybe my brain works weird, but there's a couple strange ways that I will try and combat it. And one of those ways is by doing what I literally just said, which is to take pressure off and to create stuff. I think that burnout isn't I've created too much. I think it's more often caused by the mounting pressure that you put on yourself and the like the stress reaction to work. And so if you can take that stress and kind of separate it again from the work itself, then you can kind of have a little mini affair with the work and fall back in love with it. And I think that's the key to getting out of burnout for me. So, and like in burnout, I feel very uncreative, and I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to do anything. I don't even like want to go to the grocery store. It's not fun at all. And so I'll be gentle with myself, but I'll also be like, hey, it's time to just like sit in Illustrator, or maybe go on a walk and come back to it, or like just sketch something and like just come up with something that makes me excited personally. And then I can get back to the work that's like making people money, or maybe I can turn that into the work that's making people money. But just to make something with no pressure and to fall back in love with what I'm doing.
Just something for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Paloma saying that she is currently burnt out in her day job, which I can definitely feel. But yeah, to that point, I just say do something for yourself and kind of see where that goes, and see if that can then be somehow redirected into your own work.
Yeah.
So, also, I'm realizing you guys have some cool Ravie gear behind you. Let's do. Could I see your collection?
Could I see your collection?
So you have two R's behind you. You have a neon one, and then Noah, do you have like a projection behind you?
Mine is actually neon, but my camera in my room is just so much brighter than where Austin is.
Oh, really?
So that is also like a neon one, but
It's
I do have a
there.
hat. Let me get that real quick.
Yeah, and I actually don't tell anybody. I lost my Ravie hat, I think, in the move.
Austin.
However, we are going to that conference that I was talking about next week, and we've got like 20 hats that we're getting and a bunch of hoodies or whatever. So I'm going to take like some of those. Some of the Ravie team.
So now you have 19 hats.
Yeah, so now I could just like stack them up and be like super duper tall. It'll be great.
Ooh.
But yeah.
And so, where'd you guys? I mean, if you're comfortable saying,
Yeah.
Did you guys do an online shop for that, or did you go to like a local store for
Just
printing needs?
Print on demand.
Yeah, print on demand. All right.
Stuff. But in the future, I do plan on making some more custom designs and some exciting stuff. I'd love to actually, because people have asked all the time, they're like, can we get some Ravie merch? And we just have never set up a shop or anything to do it.
Yeah.
In the future, I want to actually make, like, I really like fashion and clothing design.
Yeah, because that's part of your thing, right? You also model, right?
A little bit.
And so bringing those two worlds together.
Yeah, and I'll be putting out some content soon about actually making some like apparel designs, and I'm very excited for that. But I'd love to actually like put it all in a beautiful shop where people can actually buy stuff they care about. That'd be really fun.
And that kind of brings you back to your roots also of graphic design, because you can't really make the apparel move per se.
Not yet.
I mean, not yet, I guess.
Wait till we get some like e-ink shirts or something, and you press a button and it does a loop on it for a sec. I don't know.
Transforming.
It's a new dream.
Really uncomfortable to wear, but it would look cool. So
I don't know, they're making like flexible LEDs and stuff now.
That's true.
So it's
Flexible
like only a
OLED
matter
shirts.
of time.
I don't know.
We could be an early adopter of that. That'd be really
That's
fun.
right.
I would dig that a lot.
But cool. Thank you guys for sharing. I appreciate it.
Of
We are a little bit over an hour into the show, so we only have about 20 minutes left. But we like to do a thing called Monkey Paws, which is a focus on making sure you don't get carpal tunnel.
Mo.
Now, do you guys ever?
Out of the two of us, I am much more ooh than
I'm way more
Noah's way more than ooh. So I think this is
Glad
perfect.
you got
It
this
just
right.
works.
Yeah.
It's just how I had a feeling. You read more ooh for me, so
I just it had to happen.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't screenshot that.
But yeah, so do you guys ever have to really struggle with any wrist issues or anything when you're kind of stuck into After Effects for a while?
Not personally, not that I know of anyway. Yeah.
You're still young. You still got those youthful wrists. But I'm going to walk you guys real quick through an easy exercise you can do. Whenever I actually do these takeovers for Adobe Live, my wrists feel so much better at the end of the week because I'm doing these twice a day. But it's super simple. All you do is you reach out forward with your palms out, and then you bring in your fingers like this and go ooh, ooh, ah, ah. Big part. Sound effects are important. There we go. Then you release. Then you go down next like that. And do the same thing. You bring them in. Ooh, ah, ah. You can start to kind of feel it go down. Normally, like these spots. If it hurts at any point, obviously stop. But then after that, you flip your hands out so that they're like this. And you bring them in again. Ooh, ah, ah. And then the very last one is you bring it towards yourself like this. And then one more time. And that's the one that always gets me, honestly. And release. So it is like shake it up. We normally do it like, 1 or 2 times just to go through them. But it's always good to kind of have that division, especially when you're stuck just sitting in front of the keyboard all the time. Yeah. Do you guys predominantly work off of desktops or do you guys work off of laptops?
Desktop. I need my multiple screens. I got to have them.
After Effects would not run on a laptop.
No, I get that. Although I was surprised when I used to have a real souped up MacBook for a while there. My After Effects actually ran pretty decent, and I want to try out the new chips that they have.
I was going to say, but the M1s are probably pretty all right with After Effects, but who's to say? Yeah, there's no way to test that. There's no way to know. So I guess we'll never know.
Thank you for doing Monkey Paws. So we have. It was the same thing. We saw the same thing.
It's even funnier now.
All right.
Oh my god.
So we've got about like 15 minutes left or so. We do have one segment, which I know I kind of am just throwing at you guys, but we have what's in your sketchbook, which a lot of times is just kind of like looking at different like project files or things that you're willing to share. Is there anything that you guys would be able to kind of show off to see behind the curtain?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. Ooh, what's in your sketchbook?
All right. So we'll start with Noah. Now I'll pull up your screen. Obviously, you've been kind of working while we've been talking as it's been going on. One thing I do want to ask you about is kind of when you're brainstorming and you're working with colors or fonts, you seem to kind of always pull off to the side of the artboard and kind of work on the side and then come back in. Do you tend to kind of keep those files as they are, or when you're kind of finishing things out, do you delete all the sides and kind of create another version?
From the artboard? I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm saying so you have all this like test on the side. Like if I were to open up any of your files, would you always have that test along the side?
So recently I've made a bank of fonts that I just really like and I keep coming back to because it's kind of annoying to be like, I know I have great fonts and I'm just scrolling through a giant list and I just don't know, where it's easy to be like, all right, I really want to use like Brute, for example. I really like the look of this guy, so I can just grab him and use him. But no, my files look extremely messy, and this is like from maybe like 30 minutes or whatever of actual work, and it's just they get so insane. I'll pull one up after we jump back to Austin for a sec, so I'll actually show like a page of real sketchbook. But cool. I will like take this and unlock all my layers, and I'll just like make copies of artboards all over the place. I usually will like version out things like that.
Yeah. But when you create a new document, you pull up an old document and just copy and paste the list of fonts that you have kind of on the side.
So I have a basic file that I use to, like, if I'm making poster. Some projects I'm like, I'll just make it blank and I'll just drag like the project assets in. Yep. But I have like the base comes with these things right here, these guys. I'm starting to introduce some more colors into the base file, so I have like some color palettes I can work with right away or like mess with. But I have all my ratios for posters if I'm making posters, and I have all my favorite fonts, and maybe I have some colors as well, and it just gets me started easier. So I do enjoy my base file, but generally I'm insane and I just like make whatever.
Yeah. Well, speaking of insanity, I know also, Austin, you have yours as well pulled up. I'm going to go pull up your screen now.
Yeah.
And what are we looking at here?
This was, I think, one of the last loops I ended up making on my own. And I guess I was thinking, oh, my Illustrator's really messy. I could show that it doesn't look messy in the actual animation, but the artboards look messed up. And then I remembered that we also said that we like really never use pre-comps. So I forgot that there's all these fun guys down here, hundreds and hundreds of layers. More pre-comps than I would normally put into anything in this project file in particular. But typically, I don't know. I just get so annoyed having to jump back and forth between pre-comps when I just want to like grab an asset that I already have. So that's usually why I just keep this huge list. Usually if I'm pre-comping something, it's because something has gone terribly wrong and I need to try and just be like, I don't know, maybe pre-comping will fix it or whatever. But usually I'm just sitting with my big old list of layers. But you'll see that like there's all this like lighting and texture and whatever on all these guys in here. I have all the glows disabled because of computer resources and whatnot. But this is how it was before it came into After Effects. You can't even see some of the things that are here. I was just like, okay, this scene, I'm gonna need a circle. I'll figure the rest out later. So I just made a circle. You can barely see on this thing. Pretty much when I'm working really quickly like this, I mean, I always have my like color palette up on the top left or whatever. But if I'm actually adding detail or doing any of those things in Illustrator, it's just because it would be too annoying to do in After Effects. So I'm pretty much only making the parts I actually think will be difficult in Illustrator in terms of coloring and texturing and whatever. Unless, and
of course, using Overlord as well, I'm sure.
Of course, because we live in gradient land so often, I gotta just be able to pop it in there easily. But yeah,
if we could hop back in to your After Effects real quick, I do have a question for you. Just about your kind of like project structure in how you're coloring different things.
Yep.
So for your layers, it looks like you've gone in and you've purposefully kind of switched it out to be something. How do you approach just as it goes, or because it looks intentional, whatever it is?
Funny enough, we had a project once that we ended up actually having to refund because we just really didn't get along with the client. It was the only time we've ever had to do that. But I was so psyched about this project when we started that I just went and changed all the default colors to the like color palette of the project. And that's been like 2 years since then. And I never changed it. So I just live in this like old brand world that never saw the light of day. I just haven't fixed it. So.
But they don't necessarily stick specifically to anything. It's just you went in for like an aesthetic change of the color.
That was it.
And then when it comes to your project, like folders with your comps up in the like top left there, do you guys, when you're passing files in between, have any sort of file structure that Ravie like sticks to, or is it each designer?
It can be different per person, but typically if we've got a master file, we've got like one for comps, one for audio, and one for any other like photo or film assets that we need in there. We'll just have those 3 folders and then everything kind of just sorts in there.
Yeah, because I'll often kind of use like a explanation point and main, and then I will kind of have things that kind of build off of that. Do you guys use any sort of like terminology where you pass things around, or is it just you kind of label comp 1, comp 2, you name it?
Noah's got some interesting layer names at times, I'm sure, out of us. However, he also doesn't end up realizing he hasn't saved his project until we've been working on one for like 2 hours usually. So that's always fun.
Nerve-wracking.
I give everyone anxiety. It's good.
But we do have we're starting to try to implement a more consistent file naming system. It's actually at the request of one of our motion designers on the team, Msetti. He's a very, very organized person, and Noah and I have always just been working together. So we're like, yeah, I can tell what he meant there. Yeah, whatever, it's fine. But now that the team is actually growing or whatever, we're trying to be a little teeny bit more structured. So
yeah, I just feel like it's a scalability thing. But when it's just the 2 of you, obviously, if you don't need to waste the extra time to do it, then like, why do it? You know?
Right. Austin and I can seriously read each other's mind at this point. It's kind of weird.
Yep.
That's what happens when you work with someone for like 2.5 years.
Noah, number 1 through 10. What are you thinking of?
Oh,
probably gradients that you're working on here, and you're messing with the new kind of like ways that you can incorporate them in. I've never messed with that smudge very much, though.
this is the freeform gradient tool, and it's not the freeform gradient, it's the mesh gradient tool, sorry. And it's one of the best things in Illustrator. It's been in here for a while. I don't think anyone uses it as much, but you can't bring it into any other program, but it's the most beautiful thing ever, and it's how I make so many things. By the way, I pulled up some of the project files, and I'll also say, like, sometimes when we're doing actual motion, we like to just sketch things out, and it's easier for us sometimes to do it in Illustrator, but sometimes we do actually go pen and paper. And so here's like, oops, not that one. Had it for a sec. Oh, here's another like sketching out ideation for a lovely little poster. But
now, it was those two different variations of the same of like what you would like has different options, or is it more so like a like do you storyboard in pencil ever, or is it mostly all storyboards like are built in Illustrator?
Sometimes it's easier to go like in pencil and paper. It can be easier, but usually we're just like throwing things back and forth in Illustrator. And then some of my project files, you can really clearly see that like versioning out process that I have if you go over to my screen. Of like, I was messing with colors for these. So like, this is how it started. And then you can see like it evolving and me changing and messing with it more and more and more until we get to here. I was actually happy with it.
That neon glow vibe that I love. I love like the blacklight posters that I used to have growing up. And like, I just want somebody to create one that is adult that I'm allowed to have. You know, like one that's not a weird panther or anything, you know?
Right.
This one started out super weird. As you can see, like this one, I had my base file because this guy's still hanging out in here. But this one was before I made my base file. And I had like a reference poster. And I was like, maybe I'll do something like this. And I was messing around with layout. And then I was like, this seems fun. I just made this because I got frustrated with this whole idea.
And it's literally got that mesh tool that you were literally just talking about.
Oh yeah, I use this thing all the time. It's just like a couple points.
It's got it kind of looking like a basketball.
I know, right? And I was like, that's fun, but I'm not loving the layout of these things. And you can see it evolve into this. And then I added texture and changed the colors a little bit in Photoshop, and it changed into that.
Now that is something I'm trying to get better at, that I've learned by watching a video by Droplin. That he was like, don't delete. He's like, your computer can handle it. Just continue to copy and move it to the side, and like always have it so you can go backwards. And as long as I remember to do that, I feel like it's totally invaluable. Like it saves you so much time.
I'd also say one of the best things to do in designing is to like pay attention when you make a mistake, because that mistake can turn into like your new favorite design thing.
Right.
And like this, I'll show an example, like really just super clearly. This was a mistake. Half these things, actually. This guy right here, I love him. I think he's great. I was not doing that. I actually was cutting a circle like this. I chopped it here and here. And I'm sorry, I chopped it here and here. And then I was going to do something else with this and just use this part. But I actually ended up scaling this down, and I was like, oh, actually, I love that. And that's really cute. I'm going to keep it. That was a mistake. This guy was originally going to be a regular star, but there were 2 extra points on the circle, so it made this shape instead. And I was like, great, I love that. Like, it happens all the time. And this font was going to be a different font, but it was in this font, and I liked it, so I kept it. So, I mean, just like be aware of the mistakes that you're making and be like, actually, those are just little opportunities for you to take things in ways that you would not normally take them, which makes more unique and oftentimes better design.
Oh, good to know. I feel like, embracing the unexpected is a good piece of advice that is scary, but can often lead to cooler results. So, well, great. What can we expect to see from you guys next? What's on the horizon? What are you excited about? What can we look forward to?
Oh man,
dude, so much.
Yeah.
For me personally, like a lot of the things that we've talked about, like a little bit of apparel design and of course some more Illustrator tips and more creative tips overall. That's all coming to my socials. They're on the way. We're doing a little bit more collaboration with Adobe on some of those, and I'm very excited for some of the. I have a new. I'm doing a new content thing with it, and we'll see how it goes. I'm very excited for it. I think it's going to be really, really fun.
It's going to be great.
And we can find you at Noah Damon Wilde across
Noah Damon Wilde on Instagram and across
Instagram.
wherever. My name's
Threads
pretty
now, I
unique.
guess, too, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right. We're
Popping into
everywhere.
Threads.
Shout out to Threads.
And then you guys, I know also when I have it up, it's just your thing. You guys also mentioned your LinkedIn as well. Do you feel like you leverage LinkedIn a lot for motion design?
I'm gonna start doing it a lot more, but pretty much up until this point, we've just posted everywhere. We haven't really necessarily made content specific to each platform other than YouTube, but we'll make sure that we're captioning to things that will make more sense on different platforms or using different hashtags and that sort of stuff. But
LinkedIn's
probably
really fun. There's a lot of motion designers on LinkedIn, which is really, really fun to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know you guys mentioned that you are going to like Raleigh for a convention, right? What's the convention about?
Dash Bash.
The Dash Bash. It's actually the first conference that we went to. They had the first one in 2021, took a year break. But it's a conference, got some speakers, gonna have some networking time. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Are you guys
time.
tabling or anything?
No, but I actually am going to be giving a in-person talk in LA in August, late August. So which means I have that long to make a 30-minute presentation. So I'll let you know what it's about soon. But it'll be great. Be excited.
Kendall, who I think might still be in the chat. Yeah, she's still here. She's done a lot of things also with I know whatchamacallit. Oh my god, I'm blanking on the name of the courses. Skillshare. She's done a lot of Skillshare and different talks too. And I think she's also in your Discord. So I'll have her also ping you guys. Is there anything to look forward to in your guys' Discord that you're kind of planning? You guys having events coming up or any like live streams you guys are doing?
Yeah, so we had kind of stopped doing the Daily Motion Show for a little while just because Noah and I had talked about so many different things already, and we were kind of waiting for more news to happen in the motion design world. And what we've done in the meantime is actually do these challenge tournaments where people from the Discord will sign up and go head-to-head against each other. Mario Kart style on like 3 weeks worth of prompts. So it's a different prompt every week. There's different restraints. There's a required effect they have to use. There's like power-ups they can buy to use against each other. Like there's one that people really like to use where they can spend some of their like points and get Noah and I to design a horrific shape that the other person has to use in their animation very prominently, or like when they give their explanation video, their like pitch for their piece to give some context behind the scenes, they have to do it in a completely different language than the one that they speak and caption the whole thing in English. It's fun. Noah and I come up with devious little punishments. It's great.
It's a lot of fun. I'll have to catch those. And those are through the Discord server people share?
Yep, that's right.
Oh, very cool. And they can find a link to that Discord through Ravie.co, right?
I wish it was on the website, but it's not. However, you can find it in the link in my bio on Instagram.
Okay, so just go to your Austin Bauwens on Instagram and be able to navigate from there.
That's right.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to come on. It was a real pleasure having you, and looking forward to seeing what comes next from you. And good luck with the convention.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. All right, talk to you guys soon. All right, guys, that's it for us for this. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll hop into our next show, which is another episode of Offset. But thank you, everyone, for being here. Once again, my name is Ryan Selvy. You can find me on Instagram and on Threads. And it was a pleasure having these guys on, and I hope you guys stick around and stay tuned. All right. Thanks for watching. Yeah, that was about an hour and a half.